Welcome to episode 5 of Carl Knows People podcast. Today, I'm interviewing somebody who I would say we have an extensive musical history. He was the band I was in with him lasted the longest out of any band I've ever been in, probably 6.5 years. I think we were together. He was the singer of the band Hometown Hooligans, or Hooligans. We kind of just started referring to ourselves as. My guest today is Cliff Bresee. How are you doing today?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. We have done this once, actually twice before. We did it once. That was actually saved. Our first attempt, I had some technical difficulties, and it got deleted because I did not realize that I was not plugged in my laptop. So it stopped mid-recording and it lost everything. Second one we did, interesting. We had a completely different conversation the second time. And I have a feeling we're probably going to have a different conversation this time. A lot has happened to us both.
Yeah.
It's been, how long has it been since we played together?
Well, let's see. The band
7 years?
went for like 13 years, and we just stopped this year. So 6 or 7 years since you've been in the band, and then at whatever point that was in the band that we did that interview.
We were still currently playing together when we did that. Yeah. So I don't remember. So I was drumming in that band. Cliff was singing. We had Cliff's wife, Stacy. She played bass and kind of organized us, I would say, for the most part. I called her Mom. Then we had Dave for the duration of it and Dan at the beginning of it. But so what we're going to do first, though, is talk about you and your life. You're from childhood up until when we played together, then things since then.
Birth to near death. Okay.
Yes, as we all are. Tell me where you were born and when, if you don't mind.
Yeah, 1968, Ypsilanti,
Michigan. Did we get into? I don't even know if I asked you where you were born the last time, because I don't think I've heard that.
And
before.
we moved when I was an infant, so I know nothing of Michigan.
Okay,
but you asked where I was born. That happens to be where I was born.
So where did you grow up?
I literally have no other ties than that.
Where did you grow up?
Lake Stevens, Washington.
Okay, that makes more sense. What was your childhood like? You're musical, obviously, and you have a theater, part of your personality. What was it like growing up? Did you have music in your household?
Not really. Not in any way that was, distinctive or different. When I was in the 4th grade, I joined band, and I enjoyed that. So I was a band geek growing up.
4th grade, what, you had it that early?
Yeah, that's when they started introducing you to an instrument, 4th or 5th grade.
Cornet?
So it was before even middle school. It was end of elementary. Started
like actual instruments or like cornet?
No, like actual instruments.
Oh, okay.
I don't recall doing anything performance-wise, and my memory is vague enough. It might have even just been kind of a preparatory thing, getting ready for middle school. My mother was musical, but my mother also passed away when I was really, really young. So
Okay.
All I have is kind of just through pictures and stories, a memory of that. And I have like really vague memories of her singing. I know she played guitar, but I don't have many memories of that. Yeah, my dad wasn't particularly musical.
I did know him.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the sum of it. A lot of what I got into music happened a little bit as I went through high school and got introduced to some things, and then later in life. But I was definitely no musical prodigy as a kid.
So school band, what was it trumpet? Because I know you played trumpet.
Trumpet primarily, brass, played a little bit of French horn, baritone, but the trumpet was my main instrument, yeah.
This is funny. This is the 5th podcast I've done. 3 of the 4, their instrument was trumpet.
Well, yeah.
Including me.
I mean, whether trumpet makes you a better instrumentalist or better musician or not, trumpeters are convinced that they're the best musicians.
Oh, yeah.
So that helps a lot right there.
I was first chair the whole way through.
Same here. A first chair trumpet, it's like people can't tell you that you've got an ego. You've earned it. First chair trumpet is where the ego lives.
You guys just sit over here to my right, or my left, or wherever it may be. I did lose first chair actually once in 6th grade. I got beat by somebody else, but that didn't last long. It gives you that competitive thing too.
Yeah.
You well, if you care, which I did. My brothers were both saxophone players. So you have one brother?
Yes.
And that's it? No other sisters?
I have step siblings.
Okay. And
was he dismissively from different compartments of family? So
was he musical at all like you?
He played percussion. I kind of wish he
Okay.
still did.
Yeah.
When he goofs around, he's got great rhythm,
Hmm.
but that was his gig. He was percussionist.
Okay.
I don't know if he can sing or not. He mostly told me to stop singing.
He told you to stop?
Oh yeah,
He didn't think
yeah.
you had it?
No, I think because we were brothers and we just annoyed the crap out of each other, and that's just a memory I have. Is
As in
I
younger?
would sing I would sing along with stuff a lot, and he'd be like, he'd want me to stop. The cliche, who sings this song? Yeah, not you.
Let them do it. Yeah, let them do it. Did you was he your older or younger?
Younger,
Younger brother by how many years?
year and a half.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
about the
not even.
difference between Chad and I.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's the middle brother, and we were both musical, and I think for the most part we encouraged each other, but we were also in bands together a few times, and it's kind of nice having a built-in person you can play with that night, and you don't have to go outside your own home.
right.
How far did you go all the way through high school
Yeah,
doing trumpet all the way through senior year?
yeah, all the way through high school, and still play it some. No,
Did
I
you play
didn't
in
do.
college at all?
I did not play in college. I did choir in college, but I
Okay.
did not play trumpet in college.
Were you a marching band or was it stage or both?
Total marching band geek, drum major.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, we didn't get into this last time either. I didn't
yeah.
know all this.
No, marching band.
That
Marching
really
band was the
explains
thing.
your choice of career currently. You are the high school music teacher at ACH. How
That's
long
what
have
they
you
let
been
me
doing
do.
that now?
I think 7 or 8 years. I started there officially in 2007, the 17-18
Oh, okay.
school year. Math it from
And
there.
you didn't have a teaching degree, right? Just
No.
a master's in your field.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just some background there.
Interesting. Okay. So we'll go back to your childhood again. When did you start discovering like your own musical taste as far as, what you liked, what you wanted to listen to besides radio? Where did that taste come from?
I think I've been a bit of a chameleon when it comes to taste. Just in the way you asked it. I mean, the first legitimate album I ever owned. So, I'm old enough that obviously I had,
Record.
at some point, I had a record player,
Yeah.
got one of those and it was a big deal. And I was young enough. I don't even know how old I was then, but, I got these kind of, gosh, I'm trying to think of what the name brand would have been, but you'd see them on TV commercials all the time and they'd be a mix of like oldies rock and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
those are the first albums that I had. But the first album that was like my own music I was going to listen to, I remember getting, I can visualize it to this day, open it up because the cover was beautiful. And that was AC/DC Back in Black. But then, I mean, from there, I kind of morphed into, I was in the early 80s, very much into new wave. Yeah, I've kind of been a bit of a chameleon, a little bit of indie rock. Not so much, I try to have some street cred by saying punk, but if I'm to be honest, when I look back on it, I'm kind of, the punk that I liked was more post-punk pop.
Hmm.
When there was that period after the 70s, in the 80s, where there was popular music that was influenced by what punk was. And I guess I was kind of into that sort of stuff a bit.
Did you ever delve into hair metal, any of that kind of stuff?
You know, Not really. I mean, I liked it well enough, but during that period, if you want to talk, mid 80s, big hair, glam rock, heavy metal, I'd listened to some of it. But at that time, I was kind of into what I would think of as more the new wave scene.
Yeah. I find it interesting when someone doesn't have like an older brother or something or a cousin or something that they don't have that influence of their record collection or what they like to listen to just, by proxy of being in the same room with them or something. Cause I definitely did.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think your taste formed? Is it just radio, MTV?
Yeah, radio definitely, and MTV was coming on the scene and was pretty influential. And I liked your comment about having older brothers because, being the oldest, I would say even like getting into popular music. Two observations about that. Getting into popular music, I was probably a late bloomer in that sense. I mentioned AC/DC Back in Black being the first album I had. That was for my 13th birthday, That's when I started just even having any musical identity at all of my own. And I feel like that's a little bit late. Not super late, but maybe a little bit late.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when you asked about rock, my personality was such in my household and among my friends that often I was like the diplomat, the peacemaker. And I kind of shied away from anything that was too kind of in your face, violent, loud. And I think that shaped the fact that I don't want to say the big hair rock scared me, but the culture that went with it. I
Yeah.
was like, that's not my culture. I was not comfortable with it.
More of the fact that you didn't want to make other people uncomfortable,
More the fact that
being the
it kind of made me
peacemaker.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Okay. Just needed the sex, drugs, rock and roll type aspect of it
Yeah.
that they preach and like.
And yet, there was parts of it I still liked. I mean, I'm for the longest time remained an AC/DC fan.
Yeah.
I know you're a big Kiss fan. I wouldn't call myself a Kiss fan, but I own some Kiss vinyl and I loved spinning that as well.
Do you still have it?
I do not.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's too bad. We would make a deal here if we did. If you had something I don't.
Yeah.
So you being the older brother, do you feel you influenced your younger brother at all musically into what he listens to or listened to?
I don't think so, and that's really interesting because we're close in age. Because the very thing I just described,
Mm-hmm.
my brother embraced. He was
Younger,
yeah, he was like on.
yeah. My oldest brother, kind of formed what we liked early on. He was 4 years older than I was, so he was really in Van Halen. That was his band growing up. Dokken, Queensryche, all that kind of stuff. Then me and Chad kind of branched off a little heavier side of things. So 13, that was the first time that's the album you bought yourself.
No, it was given to me as a gift.
Do you know the first one you bought?
Whew, no clue.
Really? That's usually
First of all, it seemed like after record player, it wasn't far behind that there was a tape deck.
Yeah.
So, you hear stories of, just lifting songs off the radio, and then you get those earworms where every time you hear that song, you also hear that radio announcer at the beginning or the end. That's just how you hear the song now. That was me. I mean, probably 80% of the music I had for a while was mixtape cassettes I recorded off the radio.
You got to wait for the song to come on, and
Yeah.
yeah, I did plenty of that myself.
So I don't recall. I mean, I definitely remember going to record stores and buying stuff, but I couldn't tell you what the first thing I bought was. I can remember albums I owned, and I'm sure I bought many of them, but both albums and cassettes. But I don't know. I don't have a memory of the first one.
Mine was Loverboy, Working for the Weekend. I don't know if that's the name of the album, but the song.
The name of the album, I can picture it because Loverboy would have been one of my first as well.
Yeah, I think I was like fourth grade.
Yeah, I had that in vinyl. I can
believe mine
picture
was
the album.
tape.
I can't remember the name.
Mine
of it
was
right
definitely
now.
tape. Yeah.
You mentioned, not to segue off, but in trying to, because I've posted stuff. I psychoanalyze my musical influences where they were, and it's as a guy who's been in bands and does music, it's good to feel like you're legitimate as a musician, and as a guy maybe a certain amount of toughness to you, but then I know some of that's just not me.
Yeah.
I own that and I know it. So you mentioned Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
So like I liked some Van Halen. I liked some early Van Halen. Listened to it, didn't own any of it. And there was even just a part of Van Halen I was like, okay, I know the people who are into Van Halen, and that's not my crowd. And I don't even mean that in the way that the 80s was all about its cliques. I was like, those people, I probably couldn't hang and party with them because they scare the crap out of me a little bit. I mean, not really that extreme. So when not 1-2, but when Jump came out,
1984.
Yeah, so I'm the end of that area, 1984. Yep, that was like, oh, I like this Van Halen, and then I was a Van Halen fan during that period for a while afterwards. And I feel like that tells my story. I'm one brand when it comes to rock. I had been through my early years one brand of Van Halen and not the other.
You're a Hagar.
Yeah,
You're a Hagar Van Halen guy.
Yep. Van Hagar. Version.
I'm kind of both. I had this conversation with some other. I don't think it was on the podcast. I think it was just. I'm in a text thread with the first band I was in, and I feel we all feel the songs and choruses and stuff were actually better with Hagar, but Eddie's playing was better in the early days.
Definitely was edgier.
Yeah, maybe because by the time those later albums came out, you've heard it. You heard what he was about. He was great. I mean, he very inventive, but I don't think the later years he was. Maybe the drill on Pound Cake, that song where he is that I believe that's the song where he does the drill at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my first concert, Van Halen was the headliner. I didn't go because well, no, I did go because of them, but it was a 5 band. It was the Monsters of Rock in Seattle.
Yep. I was wondering if that's what it, when you just
Yeah,
putting it in the timeline and Van Halen
yeah,
headlining,
1988.
it sounds like that could be Monsters of Rock.
Yeah, it was talking about not fitting into that culture. I didn't even know what that culture was about until we went, and it's like, okay, no, I'm not. Well, I was seventh grade. I was summer my seventh grade year, or after my
Well,
seventh
yeah.
grade year. So, and me and my brother, who was only 2 years older, in Seattle by ourselves. Our parents dropped us off. I've been into this conversation or this story, so I'm not going to get too into it. But just walking into that environment, like coming from a trailer park in Othello, Washington, over to a kingdom full of rock fans smoking weed and like, yeah, that was quite the experience. Do you know your first concert you went to that you wanted to go to, not that you were maybe dragged to?
Don't know that I was dragged to concerts, and the timeline on things gets a little fuzzy in my head. So I'm going to go with the first like big arena sized concert, because I feel like there was an era in the 80s there where you could end up downtown in smaller venues. There was a lot happening in the music scene. You could go see those for lack of a better term, undercard bands, and I was kind of
Yeah.
into a lot of them.
Hmm.
So my first like really big arena concert, I think it was at the before it was Climate Pledge, the Seattle
Key
arena.
Arena.
Yeah, but it was before it was Key. Whatever,
Oh,
it
Seattle
doesn't matter.
Coliseum.
Yeah, there we go. And that was Duran Duran.
Nice. Oh, cool. You got it. You actually had that was in the 80s.
Yeah,
Nice. Did they have an opener?
probably. I don't
You don't
remember.
recall?
I'll tell you what I
How was
do
it?
remember about that concert. We were on the floor. It was insane.
Hmm.
And the band stopped the concert partway through to just tell everyone to chill out a little bit.
At a Duran
There-
Duran show.
Yeah, and it was simply about the press. Like, it wasn't like chilling out at a rock concert where people get crazy and it's a mosh pit. It's thousands of screaming girls pressing the stage. And I remember, I think it was Simon Le Bon saying something the matter of, you know, listen, the medics don't want to be picking up any more 13-year-old girls off the floor. So we need everybody to take one step back and just settle down.
It's crazy when that's your fan base.
Yeah.
It's or the majority of your fan base. I've as you know, I've come to appreciate them in my later years. Not so much when they were actually out. I mean, you couldn't avoid them in the 80s if you had MTV. I mean, they owned it.
When you talk about MTV's influence, nowadays somebody would be doing an investigation whether or not there was some sort of profit arrangement between Duran Duran and MTV, because
Or Mob Ties or something.
every fourth video was Duran Duran.
Yeah, Michael Jackson, Duran Duran, Madonna. They kind of had the chokehold on that whole channel for a while.
Yeah.
So when kind of jumping ahead a little bit, when you're in the bands, did that influence? Say in our band, Hooligans. I know. You told me that you went through like year by year what the number one song was to kind of get our playlist a little bit.
I tried to do that somewhat. Yeah.
But the other songs that you guys did choose pre me coming into the band, was your taste in music a lot of it, or was it just stuff you liked, or is it stuff you thought other people would like
It
in
was
that bar scene?
All right, so you hit three layers there. So I came into the band after it started.
Okay.
They needed a different lead vocalist.
Who was in it when you joined?
Stacy had joined it. It was being advertised they wanted to put together a house bar band. Stacy was interested, and I wasn't initially. And I kind of look back, and I'm not sure why. I just know I was busy, but I'm always busy.
Yeah, shocker.
I was just recently reflecting on kind of what drew me into different bands, but so I wasn't as interested. I got to keep this story shortish. So it was Stacy,
You don't have
Dave,
to.
and Dave. Excuse me, it was Dave and Dan, and I can't recall who else, to be honest. I don't know that there was anybody else. There might have been people sitting in here and there, because when you came on, that band was still searching for a drummer. So
Okay.
I think
You didn't have
the
a
drumming-
stated drummer before then?
No, I think the drumming was like the percussion was like a session, not even a session drummer, but for lack of a better way of putting it, who could play this Friday? And I know Dan might have been the vocalist. I don't know if they had anyone else. So by the time I joined, I know I'm looking at the shock on your face. At the time I joined, which wasn't long after it started, was kind of given permission to run it at that point. But So we had the set that was already that band's set. It wasn't extensive, but we had what they were already playing, and then Stacy and I brought in music from our previous band that we felt like would match well. And so that was what we started with. And then from
What
there,
was your set? Like how many songs do you think when you joined? Was it 20ish?
yeah, I'd put it at
Something like
about
that.
there probably.
Okay.
Especially earlier on. Early on 20ish is not enough, so we were rapidly adding music as we were able. And so you end up with kind of three layers of music. And I think the band has Hometown Hooligans always just kind of became this. There was the music that came in, and much of it, not all of it, remained a part of the set list of that band. There's the music Stacy and I brought in. We tended to want to be a little more innovative and risk taking, a little more B side,
Mm-hmm.
and then mixed in that already, and you keep adding because Hometown Hooligans was what it was. You play what people want to hear. If I'm to be really honest, and I know you have had this conversation before, just on a personal level, I didn't love every song we did. Audiences loved some of the songs I didn't love, so we did them.
Right. Yeah. There were definitely some. We got to do this one again. But when we would play. So how long was it together before I joined? Then a few years.
Weeks? No.
Seriously.
Yeah, I think it was much less than that.
Well, I was
Weeks,
under the impression because
maybe months at the most.
I had a totally different impression of that because
I mean,
I had
Stacy
a
may
pretty
correct me on that, but
I had a pretty extensive song list to learn from what I remember
like I said,
in the 50s probably.
yeah, we were adding music fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? Not to
If we
make
were
this
going to
about me.
play 3 hours, if we were going to play 3-4 hours,
Yeah.
you know, 12 songs, take a break, play your other 12 songs, take a break, come back to the third hour, play the first 12 songs again. That
Yeah.
was going to get old really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. Not like I say, not to make any of this about me, but what put well, I kind of know what put me on your radar because I had asked you and Stacy, I think, because I saw you guys play. It was just you, Stacy, and was it Ian? Was he playing at
Yeah.
the bar? Was it Ian?
That's kind of what got me into Hometown Hooligans, to be honest.
Oh, you got that. You got that feeling back of wanting to perform again up there, or what?
No, Ian was in town, our old band, our old acoustic band, $9 Nap. We played there at Cooligans. Stacy was already in what was just the Cooligans bar band, the Cooligans home band.
Yeah,
It didn't have a name.
Cooley's most dangerous band.
And so we were in town, and I don't even remember how the arrangement came about, but it was really simple. Dan was like, "Yeah, you guys should have your band play," because he knew Stacy and that she was playing in this other band. And,
Yeah, so I
so we
was
played.
there. I went down. I saw that.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to interrupt your story.
No, go ahead.
But
Go ahead.
in terms of how I became a part of it, literally, it was we played, and then through Stacy, I got the word Dan wanted to meet with us. And so we sat down with Dan, and he said, and I was just kind of like, "You guys were awesome. If you guys, Cliff, if you would join the band and you and Stacy can run it."
Well, yeah,
That was that.
he,
That was how that went from a Dan led thing that Stacy was a part of to something else.
Dan was kind of on one hand pretty self-reflective, and on the other hand, not. He knew his talent level wasn't up to, I believe, the rest of us. But at the same time, I think he thought he was to some certain extent. Like I said, giving you guys, control over, what was done, which ultimately led to his leaving the conversation with Stacy on stage, which I was totally proud of her.
It's a great story.
I love it.
I'll say this about Dan, because I think you're right in some of what you said. I think he knew. Here's what I think in hindsight, and even in the moment. My take on what you just said, the slight variation on it is that, he knew he wasn't maybe at the same talent level where we were at.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he then turned around and thought at times he was. I think he thought it didn't matter. I think he thought that we were overthinking it, and that he was entertaining enough.
Yeah.
That what he was doing was adequate, and it was just as entertaining as we could be.
It was an interesting dynamic with him just happy to be on stage playing, to us wanting to actually be good and perform well and sound well, because it's our product. We want to put it out there. Not that we're selling a whole lot, not that product that way, but I want to be proud of what I'm doing up on stage. And if you got a member that can't quite keep up, it's frustrating. Where you got him that's just happy to be on stage. We're not trying to badmouth Dan. It's just what it was.
No, to his credit, there were times I had admired the fact that he was just in it to have fun. I admired it at the times I wasn't having fun.
It's a good mentality to have when
Yeah.
you can just have fun in the moment and not worry about all this other stuff that we were worried about.
Yeah.
So you got him on one hand, you got Stacy on the other hand, who was trained. She knows some musical theory. If not, I don't know how. I haven't had a chance to interview her yet, so I don't know how deeply her musical knowledge goes actually, but she was very, very well versed in what we were doing. The first actual bass player that actually played bass like it should be played, because most times I played with bass players who just kind of follow what the guitar does. Because they were former guitar players. We don't have a bass player. Okay, well, I guess I'll play bass because we don't have another option. That's kind of so. It was kind of exciting to me to play with her because I'd never had that experience before, and our ability to harmonize three-part harmonies was, I think that kind of made us stand out above everybody else that was playing around her. I don't know if they noticed it as much. We certainly did because I think we aimed ourselves towards songs that would showcase that. And even if it wasn't meant to be harmony, we would put it in. The original didn't have it, but we would put some in. I guess leading back to the original, what put you on my radar? I did send you, I think I asked you guys to do something, or maybe just you. I asked you to try to maybe do a project with me early on.
Early, before the band and everything. And I can't even say for sure 100% how we connected, but I hadn't been here very long. The way I recall it, I hadn't been here very long when you and I connected. And even that early on the common ground seemed to be past musical experiences. So we were sharing. That's my recollection. Like you were sharing with me stuff you had done previously in music. I was sharing with you. So that level of connection as musicians was already there.
Yeah. I think I contacted you because of the harmony thing. I was really getting into it at that time, and I heard you and Stacy doing it, so I wanted to be a part of something like that. So I do remember I contacted you first for something totally different. It wasn't for the bar band.
Right. No, I can't, the way I recall it, I kind of reached out to you a little bit out of desperation, and don't take that the wrong way. I just knew that, I would put vocals and guitar as far as your loves, your interests ahead of percussion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, to the extent to which that's true now, I suspect it's still that. I don't know, but definitely then if you were to put them in order, I don't know if it would go guitar, vocal, guitar, but percussion was third.
It would definitely be vocal, guitar. Drumming wasn't even. I think you told me that you knew I had a drum set.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how you knew that.
Probably just came up in conversation at some point.
Yeah.
Probably came up because I said I have a drum set, but I don't even play it that much. I still have a drum set.
And I didn't play. I tried to play along with songs every once in a while, but I wasn't good enough to usually do it, and I'd always fall off track, and I don't really have that internal metronome. Yeah, but you texted me. Were we both bus driving?
Probably, yeah.
So we had we definitely we had each other's cell numbers. You texted me and said you wanted to meet for lunch and at Cooligans, and you asked me. I believe you asked me if I wanted to drum, which I was really taken aback by because I did not expect that question.
Right, which is why I say, clarify myself when I say out of desperation. That's not about you. I knew I was asking the question that was going to catch you out of left field.
Yeah. Oh, if you told me, yeah, you must have been desperate to come my way for drumming because I wasn't a drummer, and I still remember the first tryout was terrifying because you guys didn't really ease me into it. It was open bar Friday night. There's people in the crowd. Let's see if Carl can drum. And just sitting on that seat for that long, my legs weren't used to it. That was just everything about it was nerve wracking. But apparently you heard enough to keep me around kept asking me to come back. So I guess I did okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm to be honest, it's really what you were saying to begin with. You brought quickly. We found out, you brought more than just the percussion. We had those 3-part harmonies we could build off of, and the percussion needed some refinement. But as a musician, I mean, you understood rhythm, you understood tempo. There were some things that came naturally, and so unless you got too freaked out or burned out, I just had it in my mind. It's only going to get better.
Yeah. I understood song structure, and I could have conversations with you beyond being a drummer when we were trying to compose songs. And I think that's kind of one of the main reasons that I did burn out on it. Not well, health was the main thing with me. I was getting to a point where health being one, self consciousness being one, the way I was feeling about how you guys viewed me. This may not be the case at all, but there's in my mind not being able to load and unload with the rest of you like I needed to gave me so much anxiety pre-show that
Yeah.
I mean literally all day I would think of reasons I couldn't go, and I would text you guys I can't go tonight, but I never did. I never did back out. But it got to a point where I was like physically like feeling ill pre-show all day until we started playing. Then I was fine. Once we sat down and started playing, it was fun. But everything leading up to it and post was not good for me mentally. So I did have to bow out at that time because I knew it wasn't good. So let's go back to your other band experiences. When did you first start playing with other people? Was it adulthood, or was
It was
$9 Nap your first?
no,
Okay.
no, it was in early adulthood, and I always, outside of a setting like this where we're talking from a common ground, I always feel a little bit sheepish about talking about I'm in a band, or I these are the bands I've been in, because I feel like there's kind of a stigma. It starts to sound kind of cliche that way, but
As far as what do you like? You don't
I
feel
don't
that the
know.
projects that you did were
Well, first of
actually
all, no. There can be this kind of inferred coolness factor that comes with I'm in a band.
mm-hmm.
And this isn't false humility. I don't buy into my level of coolness at all. So it feels a little bit like shoes that don't fit in that sense.
Yeah.
But so where I'm headed with that is on the one hand, because I've thought about this, I don't know. I might say I've been in maybe 6 bands or more, but some of those were things there were more like projects that never totally launched and then ended up segueing into something else. At the end of it all,
What do you consider launching? Playing live in front of people? What do you
no,
consider? What
because
do you consider about that?
in some of those we played live in front of people.
So why don't
I
you
think
feel that launched?
I feel like longevity and even just musicianship and chemistry. There are certain things that I felt like, it's not that they were horrible, but in the end, I'm not sure I would put the label band on them. They were kind of a
Okay.
band project that didn't have the staying power, or ended up, then you meet other musicians along the way, and so it morphs into something else that does have lasting power, that where you feel like we're in a band. This is a family. We do music together.
Did they all
This is
have
what we do.
band names?
Yeah,
Run
yeah.
those down
So
for me.
all right. So and that was my point. I'm only going to name the ones that I call
No,
bands.
I want you to name everything that had a name. Then you can
Everything
qualify. Then you can qualify if you consider them bands after you tell
everything
me.
that had a name. There was a group that was kind of a Christian rock thing that was out of the church that I was in my early 20s. We did one live gig for some sort of benefit thing. I have no idea what we called ourselves.
But you did have a name. You just don't recall because they
Yeah,
have to announce. Yeah,
they
they
have
have
to
to.
announce. So we
Yeah.
had a name. Couldn't tell you what it was. And then in college, my first year of college, connected with Stacey and I connected with some musicians, and it's kind of a funny story
Did
because
you and Stacy go to the same college or just in the same area?
well, Stacey and I were married by then. I didn't go
Oh,
to
okay,
college right out of high school. We were
okay,
married. We did things, and I was like, I don't know, 22, 23. When other people were graduating college, I went to college.
okay. I can relate.
And so we put together a band there, and the name of that band was Creed. Before Creed was Creed.
Man, was
Although,
I in a band with somebody who was in Creed? That's crazy.
yeah. And the funny thing is, like, that band only lasted about a year, but within that year, I don't know at what point, but it wasn't long. Within that year, Creed hits the scene. So we have to be like, not that Creed.
No, don't change your name. Just you have to
We're just we're
differentiate.
yeah,
Yeah.
just a different Creed. Yeah, and there was a guitarist we brought in late in the life of that band that Stacy and I connected with really well, because it never was really simpatico between everybody in that band. But the second guitarist we brought in, um, his name was Rob. Stacy, Rob, and I connected well. And that summer, we toured with a college music group that went out representing the college. And we started writing music together. And when we came back, we decided we were going to start something different. And so we started working with a couple of other musicians we met. And
So were you Creed during that whole duration of that?
Creed was phasing out at that point. We were kind of done with Creed.
That tour you're talking about, you went as Creed?
No.
Oh, okay.
Totally
okay,
different
okay.
group. So we were hired along with a few other people. It was like 8 people that went out. It was a whole vocal thing. Went out representing the college.
Was it so? It was just a vocal
summer gig. It was Western United States. It was fun.
So it was just a vocal band, not like a rock band or anything. Okay.
No, not that time around.
Okay.
And so we started forming the yet to be named band that following school year and doing music when the director of college outreach approached us and said, "Hey, our summer touring group, we're considering taking a different approach to that and like sending out a rock band. Could we hire you to be that group this summer?" So the yet to be named band became this college band, Living Faith, for that summer. And it was kind of cool because we all had to live together for 3 months.
Did you say the name of the band was Living Faith?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, that was the name of the college tour group, so we didn't have a choice in that.
Okay.
But as summer was wrapping towards the end, it just allowed us the opportunity to say, so we're going to keep doing this. And if so, who are we? Mm-hmm. And so that was the gathering, and that lasted for a few years until we started graduating college and had to go our separate ways.
The Gathering was the name of the band.
Yep. And I still just this summer, we got together with a couple peeps from the Gathering. We still get together all the time.
Awesome.
When all of us happen to get together, we jam because that was like mid 90s. So, there's a lot of water under the bridge since.
So that, I know you have a poster in the room that we practice in at your place. Is that band? You had long hair?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Kind of that you're grungy dressed in that style. Okay.
Yeah. That's the closest. I shouldn't say closest. I mean, that was an actual kind of sort of touring experience.
Yeah. How many shows do you think you played in that summer? 50?
Maybe not that much, but I guess I'm nitpicking here. Maybe 40.
Yeah. Weekend shows all during the week, just wherever you happen to hit.
Kind of depends. It kind of depended.
Now, was it a college? Did you go to other colleges? Did you go to churches? Anywhere that would take you?
We went to other schools. Yeah, all of that. The times when we were playing the most is a unique aspect, and part of the change in what they want to do with the program is that we would go to youth camps and we would be the music for the entire week then.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't think you told me that. This feels like the first time hearing that. Maybe I just don't remember. It has been a few years since we talked about it or talked about anything like that. So the Gathering. Now keep going.
Well, we kind of Stacey and I started having children, moved to California, life changed. And so there's a pretty decent gap between bands, but not between music. We're doing things with musicians, just kind of fiddling around, getting together with the Gathering and legitimate playing. There was a little while for probably the first 10 years or so that every time we would go on vacation with our old bandmates at different parts of the country, it was with the understanding, wherever we're going, you got to set up a gig. And we would play the oldies, as it were. And then at one point, we started getting the itch again. Kids were getting a little bit older, and we were trying to put a group together. It was still unnamed. We were pulling in different musicians.
This is down in California?
Yeah, and it didn't totally gel, but out of that, then the parts that did gel were Stacy and I, and earlier in the program, Ian, who you mentioned.
Yeah.
And we thought between the three of us, how do we want to do a trio? You could be a power trio. You can do this. And we decided we were going to strip things down and do songs in their acoustic forms. Not always, in fact, not usually acoustic songs that were stripped down and done acoustically. And so that was $9 Nap. And we did that for a few years until Stacy and I moved up here in 2007.
So what brought you up here? Was it your dad?
Yeah, it was my dad.
His health?
Yeah, my dad, we were looking at changes. We knew eventually we would end up back in Washington State. We weren't actually seriously looking at that time, but we were starting to feel like there might be a season of change coming. And then we got word that my dad had terminal cancer, and it may seem like kind of a rush decision to make, but it was one conversation. We said, well, we should probably let our employers know and put our house on the market and start figuring out how we're making the move up there.
And Stacy's originally from Washington as well?
Yeah, I met her in high school.
Okay. Oh, you did go to the same high school, or you just...
Same high school. Yeah.
Okay. Were you dating in high school?
She's not originally from there. She didn't grow up in Lake Stevens. She's a California girl and moved around a lot. But
yeah, I'm really interested to talk to her just from the little
she's more
snippets.
interesting than I am.
No, from the little snippets that she's told me about her life and just playing on the porch. And I think she has a famous musician relative that I can't recall right now.
She was the big difference between she and I, where you started this whole podcast, is she was raised around music.
Yeah, but you and I are pretty similar. I wasn't. My parents weren't musical. I do remember my mom had an accordion that she played, I think, in high school. That was always in the back closet, but she never picked it up. She fashioned herself as a singer, but I only heard her doing hymns in church, and people would compliment her, and it kind of embarrassed me because she was so loud when she would sing. But so I can't really remember if she was good. But have you ever been? Couple of questions. Have you ever been in a band without Stacy?
No.
And
stop and think to make sure, but I don't think so.
Okay. And what was your guys' process on naming bands? So was it those other bands besides $9 Nap, did you feel they needed to be kind of faith-based kind of sounding names? You are a pastor. I don't know if we cleared that up. You're a pastor.
And those other bands were primarily kind of faith-based within, you're talking late 80s, early 90s, which for anyone who doesn't follow the contemporary Christian music scene, I mean, legitimately the is kind of the high bar point as far as marketability, something distinctive, big places to play opportunities. Yeah, I think so. I'd have to say that in all fairness. The Gathering was, we wanted to be as a group a bit more versatile, meaning we didn't want to be necessarily pigeonholed in that way, but we also knew what our music was and wanted to be. And that one just came out of, so where I'm headed with that is that name felt like it could have some inference to a faith identity, but in a lot of ways, I remember we were on a lake in Minnesota on a boat, and we were having this discussion, and we were tossing around band names, and about the Gathering, it felt like it was about us because we just spent 3 months together, living together over the summer on tour. We didn't agree with everything, but we didn't hate each other at the end, and we all want to do this. So for us, the Gathering was this, about who we were.
Can you recall any other possibilities that you guys discussed?
I don't, actually.
Yeah,
it was a while ago, but I don't. $9 Nap.
I know the story, but it's funny. You can...
Yeah, I'll keep it short then. It evolved out of...
No, it's not for me. It's for listeners.
That's true. It evolved just out of a story. Sunday after church, and we were getting the kids together, Ian and Stacy and I and some others, and we were going to go to the movie theater. And I was pretty exhausted, and it was a hot summer day in Sacramento, and went to the movie theater. And I remember we were watching Daddy Daycare, so this was definitely more for the kids.
Yeah.
My level of interest was pretty minimal.
Is that The Rock?
Huh?
Is that The Rock? Daddy Daycare?
No, that's back. I think that's Eddie Murphy.
Okay, gotcha.
I think I'd have to look that up, but I think that's this is like late 90s, early 2000s, early 2000s.
We'll find out shortly why you don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I, the way we tell the story, but it's true. I got my frozen junior mints and my Diet Pepsi, and had my sunglasses, and went and sat in my seat and put my sunglasses on and took a nap during the movie. And Ian made the comment about taking a $9 nap, and that's where the name came from. It's a little blurry on the screen, but that looks familiar.
Daddy Daycare, Eddie Murphy, 2003.
All right.
I just figured out this whole time I've been reversed on my camera.
I think I am too.
I just looked up at the grandfather clock, and the numbers are backwards.
I'm on your platform, so I wasn't sure how to change that.
I don't know either. It doesn't matter. They can look at us backwards. It's fine. So $9 Nap. Was that so is there another band in between that and the bar band?
No, not really.
And that band was the bar band was named already, or did you guys have part in that?
The bar band being named home because it wasn't
Hometown
named
Hooligans.
Hometown Hooligans.
No, it was Cooligans at first, right?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just the Cooligans hometown band or something like that.
Well,
Because what
how did the name
you're
come up
talking
with?
about is when the name Hometown Hooligans, which you had a major part in coming up with that name. I may be wrong. Maybe it was
I don't
called
think so.
Hooligans, but I think we just were Hometown Hooligans.
My part was
And
the
Dan kept
logo.
calling it Hooligans.
Yeah, I just remember he wanted that Irish theme so bad and the Irish colors. I had my ex brother in law do the logo for the Hooligans, the double H. I think that was my part in any of that because I think the name is already there when I
It might be. It was kind of a because it was still the bar band at that time. It was still the home band. So that's Hooligans rhymes with Cooligans, hometown being the home band. That was trying to make a cool name, but that could stand on its own, but
yeah
that also was what it was in that moment.
yeah I think we both agree that if it wasn't associated with that bar, it probably would not have been the name. So I just find it interesting how people come up with names. I mean, we even went back as like some of the bands I've been in, just looking through a dictionary or looking through old books to try to come and see a cool phrase in there or something that people don't really say anymore or anything like that. So finding a band name is always an interesting process to me.
In some of the band iterations I've been in, I tend to be a little bit sarcastic and flippant about band names because just what you're talking about, I never wanted us to be really serious, trying to overthink, make our band name really cool. So I always threw out the stupid options that nobody was going to do. Things like Screaming Skunk Monkeys is probably one of my favorite band names I've ever come up with. But nobody was going to
But
name
nobody
themselves
landed
that.
it. That didn't
No,
land anywhere. Yeah,
that didn't land
that
anywhere.
may be your next. Do you have any? I know you guys backed off of Hooligans earlier this year. You kind of called an end to it. Do you think you'll maybe do anything in the future on maybe a smaller scale?
Mm-hmm. Um, I mean, obviously, I've thought about that, and I think that's probably really possible. I feel like every band I've gotten into, I have this distinctive memory of watching a local band at Lincoln High School in Seattle, and there was something about that moment. I was watching them. I was watching the drummer in particular, and I had this epiphany, like I will probably, and not that I wouldn't be happy, but I will be disappointed in life if I don't end up doing this at
Mm-hmm.
some point in my life, which
Yeah,
was, I really wasn't doing that, any sort of thing like that. So I thought that particular feeling goes away for a while. And then it has tended to thus far through my life come back at some point. And that's when I'll feel like I need to start looking around. So that could happen. I mean,
yeah,
I'm 57 years old. If it takes 4 or 5 years for that to come back, I'll probably look at myself in the mirror and go, yeah, but you're 61. So
yeah,
let's not.
yeah.
Um, there's that. Where we left things with the band is we said for some event or some special thing, somebody asks, let's ring each other up and we'll talk about it. So there's that. There's that. The band in its current iteration could do something special. That's probably about it. I don't think we would start right back up again the way we are. I think it'll either be, and I could see the latter one happening. It'll either be something special that we decide to do, or Stacy and I get the itch again. Stacy and I'm talking a lot, but the other part about that is we have a lot of creative outlets in our life right now. We do a lot in theater. I'm doing a lot with high school music, where even though we really only do one gig a year, we still have been a part of and kind of leading this pirate band that
Mm-hmm.
we play over Labor Day weekend in. So we have projects. It was a combination of we needed to cut back. We need to take some stuff off our plate. And for me, the past couple of years, I just wasn't enjoying the band as much. I enjoy the people in the band. I enjoy
Yeah.
the guys. To your story, my last couple of years were before every gig, my anxiety level would raise. I got too much to do. I'm tired. It's getting older. I'm getting older. It feels like it's getting old. Will we be any good? Which always turned out to be just fine. We had lots of people interested in us. If anything, as we become more selective, it felt like among some of our clientele, we actually had increased interest. And we'd get to a gig and it'd be great and I'd have fun. But I don't know, just emotionally, I was finding it to be kind of taxing.
Yeah. I'm at the point right now where I'm getting interested in maybe trying to play again. I had the conversation with Dave about doing this, and I don't know if he has expressed this to you, and I don't know if he wants me airing this. It's probably fine, but he sounded really, really sad that you guys weren't playing, because he basically said that was his life outside of work was you guys, even though you didn't play a whole lot at the end. You, from what I saw online, you didn't do the bar thing anymore. You're kind of an event based band.
Yeah.
But he sounded really, really down about not, because he said he doesn't even pick up his guitar now. He doesn't practice because he doesn't have anything to, to work towards. That being said, I'm tossing around the idea in my head of doing something with him, maybe acoustically, just him and I, guitars, and I'll sing. I haven't fully committed to that for myself yet, so I haven't brought it up to him yet. But I think maybe if I get into that space, maybe I'll bring that up to him.
Well, Dave's a glutton for this.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a good way. He would play anyone, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah. He played with Dan.
Of anyone I've ever met, he is the truest rocker. And I don't mean that in the sense of like the image that kind of is often associated with being a rocker. He's got the street cred. He's played from the time he was a teenager. He's gigged. He's toured. He'll play anytime, anywhere. He'll pick it up and do it.
Yeah.
He's a rock guitarist.
Yeah. So that's another thing. I don't know if he'd be interested in doing an acoustic type thing that I would be, because I don't know if I want to do a full band, and I don't know what I'd do if I wanted to do a full band. Oddly enough, we were talking drumming is probably my third, out of the three that I do. I can mess around on a bass, but I would not consider myself a bass player. I barely consider myself a guitar player. But out of the three, I think drumming probably came easiest for me. I faked it for 6 years, 6.5 years with you guys. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew how to keep a beat, but I didn't know any. Music is funny because you can not know what you're doing technically, but still do it. You cannot know scales, you cannot know chords, you cannot know a lot of things and still be successful at it. I never worked at it. I think he asked me how often I practiced, and I told him, you've seen every time I played drums, because I don't practice. I don't practice on my own. It's either rehearsing for a show with the band or we're playing in the band. I did not rehearse outside of it. But yeah, it's just the band dynamic, getting back to that with Dave being there. I think Dave was kind of like Dan in a way, but he had the chops as well. He just wanted to play. He wanted to play. He didn't get too worked up about if something went wrong. If I played something wrong, I thought about it the rest of the show when we would play. Or Stacy and I always had a thing. If she would mess up or I would mess up or we'd hear somebody else mess up, we'd eye contact immediately and we would like laugh about it or like just let each other know, yeah, we heard that mistake. I think Dan and Dave were very similar in they just wanted to play. It was just always fun for him until it wasn't for Dan. I think Dave always had fun. He didn't really care. After his wife passed, I think that's probably was a hard time for him. That kind of took up his, brain waves, his mental capacity of not maybe taking his mind off of that a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it might have been hard too, because she was at every show we played. So maybe that was harder for him too, not having her side of the stage or right in front of him, which she always had. I guess I'll talk about that with him when we get together. So, were you always just singers in your bands?
Yeah. The groups for which, and they're mostly like worship groups or maybe a special event thing. As a percussionist on the kit, the only time I've done that is when people were desperate enough for a drummer. I can keep a beat, I can do some things. And in the pirate band, I'm not the lead vocalist. I do primarily percussion and bad jokes.
Well, that carried over. That's a common theme. We discussed one or two songs of me taking lead, you doing drums. It just never did happen. I don't know if we couldn't decide on a song, or I couldn't come up with a song where you'd be willing to maybe just sit back on the kit and do that. Maybe I don't even know how seriously we talked about it. We did talk about it. Nothing Else Matters came up where I would sing. You would be on the drums, but obviously that never happened. At the end, I did start suggesting songs that we would do. I think Duran Duran was my idea. Hunger Like a Wolf, then that Overkill by A Men at Work.
Mm-hmm.
In the City, I think I brought. How long did you guys keep playing those after after I left.
Those were I was on board with all those decisions.
Yeah.
In the City was probably the one I liked the song well enough. It was just the one that I was like, okay, vocal range, harmony. It has a very particular sound to it, and we were never a band that even was concerned, because some bands are, and some bands have this identity as a cover band. They want every song to sound like the original, and I've always been, nope. I want every song to sound like us.
Yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
we played any song exact
No,
to how it's
it
supposed
should
to be.
be recognizable but distinctively us.
Yeah.
But that being said, that song, when you talk about things like Eagles, talk about men at work, there's kind of a distinctive sound. So what do we sound like doing that? Those are the things I would probably overthink.
I think In the City
going
was
to
probably my favorite to play out of those three that I just mentioned.
Once we got it, we continued gigging it. It's a great song.
Yeah. How many did you add post? Not that I expect you to remember. You already
I
had a
don't
pretty.
remember.
I know you did Tennessee Whiskey. I knew that one was new.
Yeah, there's a few.
The
Handful.
Rick Spring. No, not Rick Springfield. I played it with you when I played that one show where you needed me to fill in. That was 4 years ago. I thought it was like
You're,
2.
you're remembering more than I remember we added. I just, when you're 60, 70 songs deep, and there's some of the songs you hardly ever perform anymore, but you keep them in your rep, they're still there. I mean,
Oh.
there's the part that wants to add new music. You want to keep it fresh,
Yeah.
but also you want to stay competent in the rep that you have.
Yeah.
And I
Sweet
again,
Caroline. That's a new one.
Sweet Caroline was
Yeah.
new. Yeah.
And I did play that with you guys. One I always wanted to do is Hey Jude, just for the ending of it, because I knew the bar, I knew everybody in the crowd, if they were into it, would be singing along with us. Kind of like
Yeah.
Friends in Low Places, or Dead or Alive. Those are always sing-alongs, and
Yeah.
they would sing along like before it was supposed to be sung along with. But yeah, Friends in Low Places, that's another one that's like, we got to play that again, but everybody loves it. But that was one of those songs that you're talking about. I was not excited about playing every night or every show.
No, it would find its way onto the set list because it probably needed to be there, but didn't find its way onto the set list because I was looking forward to it.
No. What was your favorite song to perform? Do you have one?
For the longest time, and it's actually when we brought in from $9 Nap, I probably went on a solid 20-year run of loving Take Me to the River.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because I'd kind of found my own style with that, and it morphed over the years. I loved singing Bill Withers, Ain't No Sunshine. Again, we brought that in from $9 Nap as well, and had a long solid. But towards the end, I found that I was enjoying some stuff that was more funk, a little bit disco oriented, which isn't necessarily who we were as a band at all.
Yeah.
But I was finding my vibe in it. Singing songs like Stevie Wonder's Superstition, totally digging that.
Our mashup with Play That Funky Music, and what was the other one? What did we mash that up with?
We mashed it up with That's the Way, I Like It.
That was so fun at the end when
Agreed.
because people because it's unexpected, but it flows so smoothly that it's almost like, is that like you'd almost question if that's part of the original song. But that was always a fun song because it's near the end of the set usually.
Yeah, so those became the songs I really loved to do. They challenged me vocally. I also felt like if there was any sense of hubris or ego, and there's got to be some level of it with music, or you're not doing music right. But I always felt like pulling out the songs like that. They're like, wait, there's this big, hairy, long-bearded, fat white guy singing Stevie Wonder, and he sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a novelty to that
Yeah.
that I enjoyed bringing to the stage as well.
So when you switched so you had a couple of drummers after me. Dave, is that the last one? Is that his name? So when he landed and he was going to be your solid drummer, was there a learning curve transition with how he played as opposed to what I know for a fact he played with a click track, and he always had to start the songs because of that, correct? He had to count you off, whereas when we did it, anybody could start it and we would just come in. What was that learning curve like? And did you enjoy it that way?
That was a learning curve, and it had its pros and its cons. and you kind of hit on the cons a little bit. And I would just add to the con then the ability to be spontaneous. Let's jump into this song. And today, and he's a great drummer. So to David's credit, over time he got more comfortable with the fact that if in the moment we chose to be spontaneous, if I looked at Stacy, I said, start the bass line for this song, and I could turn to David and say, this is what we're doing. Now, this is the song we're doing.
Yeah.
And he'd be cool.
Cool.
And so and it was a learning curve in the start of rehearsing together. And I'm not knocking any of these guys. These are the things you just have to talk about as a band. I loved working with both Dave and David. But, for my own personal preference, we would early on, perhaps we talked a little too much about what the tempo of a song should be.
Right. I don't
But
think
if
we
were
ever
off
talked
on
about
track,
it.
we had to, we might have, there were times we might have said, we're ripping that one a little bit fast, or we need to pick that one up a little bit. It drags a bit, though. That would have been the extent of the conversations.
I think I do remember once Stacy saying that I played like basically the same tempo for every song.
Well, and in all fairness, I'm not saying you did, but I'll just say as a musician, and even thinking about her on piano when she plays piano for stuff, it's easy to slip into, if you're not intentional about things, kind of having a tempo range that you live in.
Mm-hmm. I
will
definitely
tell you
did.
that as a band director. One of the things I have to remind myself is I'll look at the beginning of the score
Mm-hmm.
and make sure I understand what the tempo is supposed to be. Because otherwise, my arms, my hands, they just want to fall into the tempo they want to fall into. And so there's some truth to that. On the one hand, being able to be laid back, be spontaneous, but intentional is the word that comes to my mind. There's a time and a place for being intentional about what you do with music as well. And tempo is one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I knew we would speed up some songs. Well, I would speed up some songs. But I don't think I think it was just adrenaline, maybe a lot of it. You're in it, and the band, the part of the song starts, going, and it just feels right in the moment. But then I don't know. I don't think we really ever listened back.
The bigger the song on a rock song, yeah, we tended to speed them up because of the energy. It was being fueled by energy.
Yeah. I was curious. I did see you guys play a few times with Dave, and I'm going to say it diplomatically as I can. From being in the band, looking inward, and being outside the band, looking at you guys, I felt maybe the chemistry wasn't quite as good as it was when I was with you guys. I don't know if it's the joking that we had.
Yeah, the chemistry was different.
I'm not saying worse. There definitely was different.
It definitely was different because it's different personalities. And again, Dave with the click track then made him that much busier, and for lack of a better word, maybe sometimes a little bit disconnected, in the sense that when we're moving on to the next set, he's headphones on, he's fiddling with his click track.
Yeah.
And so there really wasn't the space for the banter and the interaction that you and I had.
Yeah. Which was a lot.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. A guitar would be tuning or whatever. And
yeah.
There needed to be banter.
Yeah. And like I said, during the song, Stacy and I would just look. All it would take was a look, and we knew exactly what we were talking about. That was really fun. In the moment type stuff. It's hard for me to think, was he able to not play? I'm sure he's able to not play with his headphones and the click track going if you guys just jammed. But he had different tempos for every song you guys would play. It was in he had a laptop next to him or something, so he can tap into it or something like that?
He actually had a physical list that he was working from, yeah.
So what was this click track playing through?
It was a device that's what it was.
It was just a metronome?
You just changed the tempo and it's a click track.
Interesting. But he could
pros of it. Yeah.
Okay.
On the pros side of it, it really did. It made it so that when we started a song, you didn't start songs that were ever too slow or too fast.
Yeah.
And then also it kept things, steady and solid throughout a song. Typically not a problem, but it definitely meant that you didn't run into that thing where maybe parts started to stretch apart a little bit and then have to find their way back to each other, which frankly wasn't something that bothered me much. I feel like that's just live music.
I feel that would have been very beneficial if you guys recorded him always playing to a click. So
yeah.
And I can't remember, did we do click when we recorded?
I don't recall.
I don't remember.
I don't remember doing it.
If we did, it would have been a lot longer process because I'm not very good at sticking to a click track. I might be. I don't know. It depends on how loud it is. I know when I try to play along with just songs, I would always fall off because I'm either playing louder than the song or... So, yeah, it's tough. It's also tough.
Yep.
I've also had the experience where in past recordings where the guitars, like I wouldn't be the first one to lay down a track. No, not in previous bands. I would play if I was recording on my own. I would play something, then I'd try to put drums to it. And I was like, I just can't. I can't keep up with it, or it's not sticking because the drum machine's exact. You can't do anything. So it just wouldn't have. It just wouldn't have drums after that point. I might. Let me click on this. Dempsey's about to come home and he's gonna make some noise. So I don't know. I thought there was a way to pause this, but maybe not. I could just edit it out later. So since the band, I don't know if you want to even get into it. Your guys' health scares that you guys both had. Did that have a big part of you guys trying to take a step back?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And we've known, and I've found myself saying a lot lately, even when I talk about how busy we've remained and haven't been as disciplined about clearing our plate in the short term as much as we should. I put with that I'm holding myself accountable to not sound like a martyr. Because if I am a martyr, I'm a martyr of my own making. And so I've got no one to blame but myself. So
Yeah.
I try to make clear that's not how I'm sounding at all. But I mean, the reality is when I knew I had some stuff going on health wise, it had been, a month to 5 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. And I wasn't ignoring it. I was making appointments. I knew something wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a matter of, getting the appointments, talking to doctors, getting to the specialist, all that. But I don't think it's coincidental that, I landed in the hospital 5 days after we wrapped up our production of Annie.
Mm.
Again, I talk about, Stacy and I, we have lots of different kind of entertainment outlets that we're a part of. And some of them, they require.
Were you directing that?
Physically and emotionally. Yeah. Stacy and I were directing that.
Did you have a part in it or just directing?
I had a cameo part in it as well.
What about her?
She did as well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found it funny because I knew you guys. I think I had talked to you about, or maybe I just assumed you guys are trying to, lessen your workload of either not your professional workload, but like your side projects, your side gigs and stuff.
Right.
But it's still hard to get you guys because you're still busy. It was still hard to get you guys scheduled. I had Stacy, but she ended up not feeling well. Then she says, I don't know when I'm going to be free again. So you guys are still busy. You guys are still busy. It's not like
we could be less busy. And if I were to confess something too, the level of busyness is different in that things probably don't happen as quickly as they used to. You start slowing down a little bit too. And on a personal level, we've got a grandson in the picture, and
mm-hmm.
Our lives are changing in that sense. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot going on. And again, I'm not doing the martyr thing. I said I'm not, because there's things I love about it. But being a school teacher and a music program is a blessing. It's cool. It's incredibly stressful as well. And I know as a pastor, people probably don't think of it as stressful, but you're interacting with people's lives. And I think most people on planet Earth, certainly within our own nation, would not describe the last 5 years here as peaceful and content.
Here, as in the United States?
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe I don't need to, but I will just say, by the nature of my occupation,
I'll go back further than 5 years.
I feel the weight of that on my shoulders. Yeah. And I would agree further than 5 years. Yeah. I've got my own idea of where to point back at that.
Yeah. I've always thought, and I've said it to other people about you personally, I don't know how you are able to mentally go from, say, a celebration of a wedding one weekend to a funeral the next weekend. Just that swing of emotions that you must have. But being a pastor, you probably have learned to keep that at bay. You'd have to, I would think. Just like being a doctor, you see death all the time. And if you let every one of them affect you, you're not going to be in that profession for very long. You have to keep it, at bay. And I know you personally don't know everybody that you do funerals for. You've performed a few for my family, and I asked you to do my wedding next year. I was thinking about having the band play before you guys called it quits. I was thinking about it, maybe for selfish reasons, because I would think, well, if they're playing, maybe I can jump up there and I'll do a song or two with them. But at the same time, Then I was thinking, when I was in the band, we don't want to go to Spokane. We don't want to be done at 10 o'clock at night and have to drive back home. And you know, so I just put that to the side. I asked you to do the wedding as a pastor, and maybe run the music. But I think we're just gonna we have a playlist that we're gonna do. But anyway, all that get back, how do how is it for you when you have to do, like I said, a funeral one weekend, a wedding the next weekend? Is that tiring mentally for you, or have you put it at bay enough for you to be able to handle that pretty well?
So those two things don't come up often enough, but I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
using that as kind of a way to describe things. And even school, at least my approach to school, like at the beginning of every school year at the high school level, I tell my choir and my band students that my approach to the music class is not one of trying to measure some sort of musical academic success, but that a lot of what we're doing is because it's a performing arts thing, is we're doing life together, and we just happen to get to participate in doing the soundtrack to our lives at the same time. And so that's kind of an insight to my attitude. Yeah, things are hard sometimes, and they do wear on me, and I'm an empathetic person. I know that about myself, to a fault, perhaps. I take people's burdens and concerns, and I worry about them beyond what is truly ever in my control. It's something, it's part of my thing I don't do well. And so, again, no martyrdom here, but there
No,
are those times.
why do you say you don't do that well? Why do you feel that way? I would think that would be a good trait to have, being
It is.
in your field.
It is. No, I think it is one of my I'm gonna put it this way. One of my superpowers, but every superpower has its kryptonite, right?
Yeah.
If I can put it that way. And so there are times when it's not my best friend, when I just am emotionally weary. And I found myself in recent years telling on myself, saying I allow myself to really feel the weight of the world more than I need to. I think that's also sometimes when I think about the things that I do in entertainment when it comes to theater and music. I think that's, without sounding, trying to sound snooty or highfalutin about it, I think that's part of being an artist as well, is you kind of look at the world through that lens that makes you vulnerable to what ails the world sometimes. So there's it's a mix, Carl. There's parts of it that I just feel like this is my opportunity where I am doing life with other people, and oftentimes in the most serious moments of their lives. But then some days I go, I could really go for working at Les Schwab, just turn a wrench and come home.
The reason I thought about that the time that I did is I was asked to do music for actually a wedding that you did for a friend of mine, Michaela's. That same day, I also was doing music for a slideshow for a funeral of a young kid that committed suicide in the Tri-Cities. So, and I think I kind of correlated the two because there was one song that overlapped, one song that was on both videos that they requested. So when I was doing that, I was thinking about you, and like you're actually like talking. You're way more comfortable talking in front of people than I am. I'm not good at. I have a fear of public speaking which is weird because I was a front man for bands. I can do that as long as I have other people there with me. But if it's just me talking, it's a fear of mine. So when I was doing that, I thought about you and how tough that could be. Leading into this question, has there been funerals that you've been asked to do that maybe you refused because it would be too hard for you, or one that you did that was so really tough on you? I don't know if you've done family members' funerals or if you've led those.
Yeah, obviously I'm going to be really vague here,
Right.
on some of that.
Yeah.
What I will say is there has not been, unless it's a legitimate conflict, like I just logistically can't do something.
Yes. Yeah.
There has not been a funeral I've ever refused to do. There have been times, I should say, where I've left and just felt a little bit beaten, because humans are humans, and sometimes they're just things going on in people's lives. There's stuff that's come together, and I'll be like, I've done what I felt like I could to try to bring this together for the family and the friends of the deceased, but they've got their things going on as well, and at the end of the day, I'm not entirely. I don't feel good about as good about how things were, but then so much of that is out of my control. And those are the moments I'm like, oh, it's not good to be a part of this. Let me also say though that people generally, and understandably so, look at funerals through a very negative lens. And I remind people I probably had as many negative wedding experiences as I've had funeral experiences. And one is supposed to be a celebration, and the one is viewed through a negative lens. And that
They're both
funeral,
celebrations.
they both can be celebrations, and there's a certain amount of healing and catharsis and go on. And so I don't want to get all
Right.
about
Yeah.
that. Just I don't want to give the wrong impression, because you're asking me about the hard sides of things. There have been times that are really rewarding too. I've been in this community now going on or at 18 years or something like that now. And so starting to increasingly do funerals for people I've known for a long time.
Yeah.
And that is emotionally different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to suggest that it's ever completely detached or not personal, because even when I don't know people, I try to work with the family in such a way that at a minimum I'm connected with the family and want to feel their grief a little bit. But people who I've interacted with closely for several years, coming to the end of their lives and being a part of their family's grief, is definitely a more personal experience.
Yeah, and I didn't want to come off as viewing funerals as negative. It's just the emotions of people attending are way different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's hard. That's hard to like. I'm at a point now where I'll cry for people that I didn't know very well. I watched one online of a classmate of mine. She died in a car wreck a couple months ago. And I wasn't close with her. I knew her. We never probably in person really had a conversation. But just watching that funeral, I was tearing up, even though I really didn't know her. I don't know if it's my age and being more empathetic the older I get, and knowing, I was close. I was on death's door not too long ago, 5-6 years ago. I was right there. I could have gone pretty easily.
Yeah.
But this also leads me to your church, where you do perform both of those things. When you asked me to, and I don't know if I ever expressed it to you, but when we would practice at the church, the only experience that I have at that church is my family's funerals up on that stage. So I felt uncomfortable being there, because that's my experience with that place is sadness. And because my grandma, my mom, my cousin, aunt, or an uncle, another cousin, actually, you did his too, Nathan's.
I remember Nathan's.
Yeah. That was a tough one because he was young and I thought he was on the right path. But anyway, that was tough. That to be said, practicing there was tough for me. I didn't try to show it or like even express it to you guys, because I knew that's what we had to do. That's where things were set up. But all that, say you associate what you do both on the celebratory things of a happy time and also a celebration of the sad stuff would, to me, I think would wear on me a lot. I have a lot of respect for you and those others that are able to do that and do it well. And you lead a service very well. I enjoy them.
Well, thank you.
To a certain, for what we're there for, it's enjoyable, and you do make a connection with the family. I was at one recently where you can tell the guy had no clue who he was talking about. He probably got some notes from the family. She didn't go to church or anything, so they just probably looked up in the newspaper or Yellow Pages or online or whatever, find a church, and of course they're going to do it. But you can tell there's a big disconnect because there was no personal stories that he could share with them. Maybe, I don't even know if he really did anything from that the family would write about the person that was deceased. But you did my mom's, and you told the story. You met her playing poker, out at the shed and stuff. So you have that ability to make a connection. You can feel it when you do your ceremonies. So I just thought I'd tell you that you are very good at what you do in that profession and musically.
I got to share, just because I feel like it segues into what we're talking about here, and I know your purpose is in doing this podcast is getting to dig a little bit into people's lives, and I think I probably had this smirk while you were saying all that, and I appreciate I receive wholeheartedly your insights and your compliment there. And in my own effort to become more self-aware constantly about myself, what was interesting is, as you were saying all that, my primary emotional response was one of anxiety. Yeah. I'm at a phase in my life when I hear what you're saying, and the question that echoes around in my skull. This is all getting very serious, by the way. In all these things we've talked about, and so we were just talking about a lot of church stuff here, but over at the school,
Mm-hmm.
I try to make what I'm doing there meaningful, impactful. Things I'm doing in the community is how much longer, as I get older, how much longer can I be effective, impactful, connectional,
Mm-hmm.
meaningful in what I'm doing? Or at what points do those things start to trail off and slip a bit?
But that's not up to you.
No, but it gives
It's
me anxiety.
Yeah, it's up to people that you are affecting, and they're the ones that are going to be the judge of that. And I'm pretty sure down the line you're going to have an impact on people, even if they don't realize it now. You'll have impacted a lot of people doing what you do in both of your professions. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I do notice that you are very mindful of what you do, and when you do it, you take it seriously without also trying to be too serious at the same time. So when I do ask you to do, like I did ask you to do my wedding, what thought goes through your head when you are about to perform the ceremony for a friend as opposed to someone maybe that just goes to your church, or someone out of the blue in the community that asks you? Does your mindset go to a different place, or is it kind of, this is how I do my ceremony, okay, we're going to do this? Or is it kind of depends on the situation?
It does depend on the situation. There's a whole lot of aspects to what you just asked there.
I like
Um,
asking those questions.
yeah, yeah. Uh, one of the things, how do I want to approach this? I don't have just my thing that I do, which isn't to say that I don't bring, like, I bring the same tool bag
Yeah.
to each conversation, to each moment, but which tools get used and in what way, I at least try to make that vary. My primary focus is about bringing a sense of focus to the couple that are about to be married, and without becoming off as being especially pious or too serious. My attitude about the wedding ceremony, whether somebody's coming at it from a position of faith or not, is that my role in this is that we are doing something sacred.
Yeah.
And so everything we do, I want it to embody that. When it comes to, someone who cold calls me for a wedding, and I don't necessarily like cold calls for weddings.
Yeah.
They rarely turn out to be something that that is something that I feel like is where I connect with it and the sort. But in those instances, and even I feel like maybe not friends, but people I know in the community come and talk to me. Sometimes I'll ask the question, why do you want a pastor to do this wedding versus your friend getting a license online or having a judge at the courthouse doing it? And people have an idea, they have a picture in their mind about how weddings go, and I understand that. But there's a point at which, kind of where I draw the line, is where if I feel like I'm just being an officer of the court, I'm probably not interested in doing it.
Yeah. The reason I ask you is because you're a friend, and I
Right.
know and I know
There's a
you're
relational connection.
and I know you're obviously qualified and you have everything you need to do it, but I mean, you would be invited either way to this because we have spent a lot of time together, and we get along very well. But I wanted you to be, because I don't come at it, this, I don't come at it from a faith-based or religious background, or necessarily even want that type of ceremony. Um, but I wanted my friend to be able to do it. Um,
Right.
my first wedding was my ex-wife's grandma. She did our wedding. So not being a churchgoer, but being friends with a pastor who, I mean, our friendship wasn't based on that. It was based on music, based on sports, based on, we have a lot in common. And I wanted you to actually not only experience it by being there with us, but be a part of it. I felt that was the right choice for me to ask you. And without hesitation, you said yes. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. So anyway, this got a little more off music based than I was planning, but I find it interesting because not everything about us is musical.
Well, no, and you told me when I said, "What are we doing?" And you said, "Well, we're talking about your whole life." So I didn't have it in my mind that you had to limit it to music. And then at the beginning of this, you said, "This is our third time, and it'd probably be different than the other two."
Oh, it's totally different. I don't think we talked anything about. I do remember the second one that we did. We discussed your love of Pearl Jam. You're on a road trip with Stacy across country, and I think 10. you listened to 10, and that kind of you became a fan of theirs off of that. Does Stacy or you do many originals when you do music?
Not a ton. The band, The Gathering, was probably, well, not probably, we did more originals than we did covers by the time we'd morphed into that part of the band. So that's legitimately the only band we've been in that was primarily a songwriting band.
Okay. I think that's another reason Hooligans kind of dragged on me a little bit, because I didn't feel any creative outlet really. I mean, we took our liberties with the songs and they weren't exactly what they were, but I much prefer writing my own stuff and performing it. Harder to get shows that way, harder to get people to like you. Bar band is a built-in, people are going to like you if you're good at it. I mean, if you're good at what you do, they're going to like it, but it's not. At first it was challenging for me because I was learning a new thing, learning all these new songs. But by year 3, 4, 5, 6, that wasn't the challenging part. Physically, it was probably more challenging, but creatively, I needed more, and that band wasn't doing it for me. And you can relate to that, I'm sure.
I can't. I've, with every passing year, well, actually, I've kind of plateaued now. You're absolutely right in that the creative outlet with Hometown Hooligans at first was getting it going, but then once it really found its feet and it was what it was as we introduced new music, putting our own flair on things or the opportunity to change things up. But really, it was more of a performing outlet, the opportunity to be a performer, than tapping into the musician side of it. This is where musical theater for me has become my gig, because every show's different.
Yeah. I've rattled it in my brain about maybe trying to do one of those plays with you guys. But self-image wise, I'm not ready to do anything like that. I have a big problem. That was another, I don't know if I mentioned that with the band before. Walking into a bar when we were playing, I know eyes turned to me. I wasn't imagining it. I saw it, and it wasn't for a positive reason. The size that I got up to, which was over 700 pounds. I don't know if I was probably close to that by the time we stopped playing, or I stopped playing with you guys. I was close to that, but I still feel like that now, even though I'm not. I've lost 275 pounds of that, but I still feel it, and I feel that's still what people would see. So that's why I hesitate so much on even asking Dave if he wants to do something, because I don't know if I have it in me to sit in front of people and do that yet, because I don't feel like emotionally I'd be ready to. Plus, you were talking about, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or what, where you don't consider yourself being in bands or whatever. And you're talking about being an artist. I don't consider myself being an artist.
Yeah.
I barely consider myself being a musician, even though I've been doing it off and on for almost 40 years. Not 40, 35 years. It's hard to, I think it is probably imposter syndrome a little bit. Because I do see artists that are really good at what they do. And I was like, I don't even see how you guys can envision doing that. Mainly painting or drawing or stuff like that, or anything like that. But like you were saying, you feel like, what I was saying, you think you don't want to feel like you're just trying to be cool by saying you've been in bands or whatever, because you don't consider yourself a cool guy or whatever you're saying. I understood it back then when you were talking about it. I feel the same way. Actually, I don't feel the same way. I feel good about myself when I say I'm in a band. I like saying that and I like feeling that. But at the same time, I don't consider myself to be a musician or an artist. Maybe it's because I feel like that I was able to do something that I don't really necessarily think that I'm qualified to do, but I was able to pull it off, it's a weird way to feel about things that you do and that you can do, but you don't. Like you said, you can be successful in music, but not know what you're doing.
Dude, you said a mouthful, and you don't know how much of what you said I completely identify and empathize with. And in that sense, I do feel and maybe I'm not, maybe it's just the way we are as people, as humans, but I feel like an odd nut because I am in the public eye a decent amount relative to, I think, a lot of people, relative to the fact that, live in Cooley City, Washington, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome all the time. Feeling kind of the emotional weight of self-consciousness kind of all the time, and a lot of people, I don't think necessarily see that, but that's absolutely there quite a bit. And then when you talk about being an artist, I have two thoughts about that. Art is this really vague thing, and I feel like in the current culture, the big word artist is this kind of professional level. It's going to be people who are in film and they're professional performers, or their art is in galleries. And the sad thing about that evolution is that then within the culture as a whole, I'm going to get philosophical, but this is my teacher side. This is what I talk to my kids about. We've become less artistic. Used to be a musician was, people getting together and you did music. You weren't judged on how many followers you had, or necessarily. I mean, yeah, there was always been that, but you could just do what you were doing without the whole weight of fame and stardom and whatever coolness is and success, whatever that is, all that crap that is part of it. And I feel like music in particular is one of the places that suffers, because there's can be this feeling, there's always this big gap between what is credible and what is good as music, when music is something that should just be experienced and enjoyed.
Yeah. So I can't remember who said it, but someone just defined what art is. If you're able to create something out of nothing that people can enjoy, your art, you're an artist, whether it's visually, audibly, anything. If you're able to do that, if you're able to sketch out a picture, able to do it like my brother, he's doing painting now. He's doing that Bob Ross style stuff that he never did that before. He just always loved Bob Ross, and his wife bought him a class last year to go see an instructor, and he did that. And she says, I think you might have you picked up on this pretty quick. So he took 2 more classes to get certified as a Bob Ross instructor.
Oh, wow.
So now he's teaching classes, and he'll get together, 4-hour, 3 or 4 hour thing, and people. So people come home, with a Bob Ross looking painting. He sits there and he'll show them how to do it. And I'm going to think about doing one here in Cooley City, putting one together for him. But yeah, like I think he feels a little bit kind of the same way, imposter syndrome. But he's trying something new that he's always wanted to do, that he didn't have any background in as far as that kind of art. He's also, his band is kind of taken off a little bit locally, and he's discovering all of this at 52 years old, where he's finally having some success in what he really likes to do. He had a little bit of success in a previous band, probably 20 years ago, locally. But that to be said, who's to say what art is? Or even those award shows where they award best song of the year, like who's to say it's the best song of the year? Like, just because this writer or whoever judges those things are kind of just, let's get together and pat ourselves on the back with what we do, instead of, so art's so subjective to whoever's viewing it or listening to it.
Completely.
So like 5 people can be in a band and have totally different musical styles, but when they get together and create something, that's what makes it unique when they're writing their own stuff. Even us, I think we were a little unique. None of us probably had the same type of musical, you and Stacy maybe had a
that
little.
was part of the challenge.
Yeah.
It never was a problem. Never was a problem, but that was part of the challenge, is that we collectively weren't interested in necessarily the same things.
Yeah. I was definitely, I brought my heavy metal mindset in there. That was a challenge for me too. It probably wasn't as big of a challenge because I wasn't playing that type of music, and I knew it wasn't going to be that, so I didn't need to bring any of that flavor to it. So at the same time of learning a new instrument, basically, it's probably a little easier just playing music that I probably wouldn't choose to play on my own if I had my choice. So that, like I said previously, that was my challenge, and that's when it was challenging, and it kind of made me feel like I was being creative and all that, but that did wear off eventually. Anyway, art's a funny thing. Did you take any art type stuff in your college or anything like that, or was it all ministry based type stuff?
I mean, some music classes for sure.
Was it all 4 years at the same college? Like, did you have to get an AA, or it was kind of general studies, or was it?
It was a bachelor's, and I was there actually overloaded and was out in 3.5.
Okay, so but you have to get your associates first, right? But that's a program all based on the faith. faith stuff, the ministry stuff?
So it was a Christian college, but it was a liberal arts college.
Okay.
So while the degree was in pastoral ministry, so many of the course offerings, especially those first 2 years, would be what you would have at any liberal arts college, including all the electives.
Yeah.
So that's why I was able to be involved in choir and do different things and taking math and English and science.
So did you do any like art, like painting type where you had
And
to?
I did not do any of that.
I had a little of that when I went, where you had to like look at a painting and figure out what kind of painting it was and what kind of techniques they used and all this kind of stuff. Then I got into music classes, which I thought I'd really enjoy. Those are the worst classes for me. I hated them. There was one where like, and it's probably the American side of me where you don't see outside of your own borders, but like music from other countries that to me completely sound out of tune. It doesn't make sense. You've been to Haiti. I don't know if you experienced that when you were there. If their music's totally the tribal type stuff, not the modern.
Yeah, but even that, not to get into music theory, but because I have done some of that, you're right. You start talking about like Mid East. You want to talk about, let's say, India. The entire getting into a little music theory here. The entire scale structure is different.
Yeah.
And so melodically, then the whole melodic pattern sounds unfamiliar to the Western ear, where everything on our end, for the most part, is built on the major minor scale of 8 notes, octave to octave. And so blah, 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 blah. All that to say, yeah, it sounds different to your ear. In the Caribbean, in a place like Haiti, even stuff that tends traditionally more towards West African roots of the music that would have come over in the slave trade, so much of that influences what we do in American music anyhow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we end up. Honestly, that's where we end up with rock and roll.
Right.
Is a large part of that is because of Western African influence.
So what kind of music is like the pop culture type stuff in Haiti or those type countries that you have been to? What does that sound like?
So pop culture, and I'm not going to even pretend to be an expert at all because it wasn't something.
I'm just maybe saying, what did you hear on a radio or something while you were over there in a car driving? Anything, if they did even play?
Yeah, it sounds like I guess I would describe it as kind of a mashup of pop music and with a bit of an island sound to it. There's definitely a pop music scene there. And then there's a bit of also French pop music because it was a former French colony and French is still spoken there. So the influence of even French pop stars is present there in Haiti as well. One that comes to my mind, because I'm not into it a lot, but I've listened to some and I like it. So, and one of the ones I like that comes to my mind is an artist by the name of Stromae, if I'm not mistaken, he's completely a French artist, but he's something you would hear in Haiti.
Okay, I see some videos like just cruising the internet or TikTok or whatever it is, like especially Eastern European, like their pop music. It definitely has the Western flair, but it also, you can tell it's Eastern European based, just kind of a chanty type feeling to it. So it's just kind of interesting. I think they take, this isn't right what I'm going to say, but American music, we get that influence from other cultures, but we make it completely sound like our music. So I don't know if like other people from other countries hear American music that's maybe influenced by a different culture, a different country. If they hear it like, oh, that kind of sounds like our stuff, but it definitely has an American flair to it, or if it's just complete, oh, that's American music and it sounds like American music. Whereas if you can hear the Western influence in other countries in their pop culture, in their pop music pretty regularly, you hear it sounds Americanized, but you can also hear their culture in it as well.
Well, the world is so global right now. I think when we talk about American music, that's going to be an interesting discussion because just what the United States has been as an influence in popular culture, but also just in the marketplace, let's say for 200 years. And I'm not going to try and sit here and sound like I know what I'm talking about more than I do, but I know enough to know that even what we call American music, so much of it is drawn in, not all of it.
Yeah.
And you use the word Americanized, so I think that is, but if there's a place on the planet that is we call the United States a melting pot. If there's a place on the planet right now, over the last several generations, that is the melting pot for music and entertainment, it is the United States.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
Yeah.
That's not to say other people aren't doing anything globally, but then the influence goes both ways. So if you want to talk about then that American music influence. Let's talk about hip hop. Let's talk about pop boy bands, which would be popular in both Europe, especially Great Britain, and the United States. Look at the influence over the last decade of K-pop. I think that would be a case study in the type of thing you're talking about.
I find it interesting. I was just thinking as you were saying that there's bands or artists in other countries that are huge, like in that country, like they are the artists of that country that don't even blip the radar here.
Right.
But
Yeah.
vice versa, the biggest American are also big elsewhere.
They're going to be global.
Yeah. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if the world views America as, or the United States as, the music center of the world. It used to be Britain in the 60s. That's where America would look.
Yeah.
Well, since the Beatles, I should say.
Yeah, Great Britain had its moment, and that moment's still happening. And there's a lot of similarities, obviously. But going back to the whole melting pot idea, and there's lots of places we can go with this conversation. But if we want to talk about entertainment,
Yeah.
music, and I'm gonna let that and I'm gonna wrap into that film, television, like the world has poured into the United States, and like a big wave, then it just splashes back out to the world. That's the way I kind of see that. And that's who we are now. It may not be who we are forever, especially given, things change and kind of where we are socially and politically right now. I could see that changing dramatically, but that's who we've been. That's why we have that influence. I don't know that it's necessarily we've been any more creative, but definitely welcomed. I did a collaborative class with our Spanish teacher over at the high school. We've done it a couple of different times in talking about things like salsa and cumbia. It's fascinating. You look at something like salsa. I'm not going to bore with the whole thing, but what happens? Salsa it's all throughout the Caribbean parts of Mexico, but really the center of it is in Cuba, and then Fidel Castro comes along. So where does salsa end up? Florida, New York City. And there's money and there's people in Florida and New York City, and then suddenly salsa goes kaboom.
Yeah.
And it's global.
Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe I'm just talking from a point of ignorance because I don't have any experience outside of the United States. Maybe that's just why I view things the way I do. But one of the cultures that I do find that kind of have their own thing, I'm sure they're all over, but Dollywood, I mean, that film industry is huge because so many people in India anyway, but I don't think they draw much from Americanized. Well, I mean, they do have soap operas, but who's to say America invented soap operas? I don't know where that came from, but I've delved in a little bit to Dollywood, and it's definitely its own culture, and you can tell that's what it is, and they draw from basically their own stuff.
Yeah. Soap operas, for what it's worth, that's an interesting thing. Insofar as I have traveled, Africa, Caribbean, Central America,
Mexico's
Asia.
big on soap operas.
Mexico's big on soap operas. Haiti, absolutely. And in both those instances, I'll just say, Haiti, Madagascar, the corniest stuff I've ever seen.
Is it really?
But wildly popular.
Wow, that's funny. It would be interesting just to, I mean, you can access any kind of thing now on the internet, but just to take go down a wormhole, rabbit hole, whatever you want to call of a different culture, just to see what they do watch. I try sometimes. I'll see a channel like Middle Eastern News or something will be a channel, and I'll turn it on there. Of course, there's subtitles or they're actually speaking English, and it's very interesting just the way, because Americanized news is definitely play on negativity. They wait until the very end of the newscast to say something uplifting about anything, but everything else is just the most awful news you want to. So I tend to not really watch news anymore, which is a hard habit to break, because my dad every night still he has to watch the news. He has to watch the local news. He has to watch national news. Watches 60 Minutes.
If you don't watch news, watch your local news. That's probably the better way. Hey, don't listen to Cliff. What does he know? I try to read.
Yeah.
And I just don't watch. It's the talking heads I don't need.
Yeah. And I don't.
Well, the band I do.
Right. And oddly enough, local news is the one I enjoy the least. I don't know why. And it's so hard to know what's right, what's the right news. You listen to the national news, they have their agenda of what they want you to believe, what they want you to know. But I find national stories more interesting, I guess, than local stuff. But I tend to go more towards like Sunday Morning, what used to be Charles Kuralt, that show that's now Diane Sawyer, or 60 Minutes. just because they do investigative like stuff, not on like it's not always political based and stuff like that. It's a lot of medical stuff that they'll touch on, which is more interesting to me than because political stuff's just tiring. We're at a point now in our society where I don't know if we're coming back from it. It's too polarized on each side, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. I think it might be too far gone at this point, which is it is what it is.
It's an interesting question. I try to, and it's tough to even talk about it in the general sense how you and I are talking about it. I will say I have tried recently because I feel that same sentiment. I've tried to step back and ask myself, have there not been other times in human history when factions have been so divided, but that somehow, at least with some semblance, have been able to come back? I think about where things were at here in the United States in the 1960s, or the most extreme case, if you want to just keep it right within the United States, within the 1860s.
Civil War.
And yet somehow the nation survived. So there's the part of me, I'm far from Pollyanna. There's the part of me, I do it mostly to just keep myself in check, that says you still have to believe there's some hope. You do have to believe at some point we can bring ourselves back. The hard part, the hope, is that how tragic will things get before perhaps things can swing back to a more civil, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Even with our disagreements, because if you want to use the 1860s as an example, it can get pretty dang bad.
Yeah. Politics needs to be how you better the nation. And where it's at right now is how can we vote something that hurts the other side the most? And that's what politics is today. And it's
horrible.
It's damaging. It's even damaging to the quote unquote winning side because
it's the win at all costs.
Yeah. I've lost family members over it just because I voice an opinion on something and they have a differing view. So I used to be way more vocal politically online, and I've stopped that because I'll do something once in a while. But if I want to get into that, I'll just read somebody else's post that does that, and I'll get it out of my system a little bit. Maybe I'll comment here and there. But yeah, politics now is just it's not helpful in any way, shape, or form to progress. And both sides just sad thing is, it's probably not even the government running things. It's them being the vehicle for big money running, which is how has always been the case, but it's way more obvious now. Anyway, we don't need to talk about politics. We can probably be close to wrapping this up. It's been 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes almost. And we talked a little bit about music, so that's good.
We circled the globe a bit, yeah.
We did. This really reminds me and you took a trip one time to Moses Lake. You were getting bags of soil or concrete or something, and our conversation
sounds exciting.
Huh?
I said it sounds exciting.
Yeah,
when you say it that way, you're getting bags of soil or concrete or something.
But our conversation hit like 7 or 8 different subjects just from here in Moses Lake and back. So I kind of feel that we can be that way when we talk to each other. Anyway, Cliff, I appreciate you coming on, and I really enjoyed talking to you and learning even more stuff about you that I didn't know before. I'm sure we can talk for another 2 hours on a different subject and still be just as entertained. But I think we're going to wrap this one up, and I thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for asking me. And if we do this again, at some point we got to at least squeeze in 5 minutes to share our expert opinions on Seahawks football.
We'll just do a totally separate, like you said, we had talked about doing a totally separate podcast. We can definitely do that, and me, you, and whoever else in the community wants to join in. So
want to sit here and argue about football. It'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. All right, Cliff. We'll talk to you later.
All right, man.
See ya.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Bye.